Right, so some time back somebody asked me to talk about the Jinn. So we're going to do that today, just have a bit of an introduction to who and what the Jinn are. Welcome to my channel. You are entering the world of magic and mysticism with your host, Lee W. Johnson. Keep the lights on and help improve the channel by becoming a supporter for just $2.99 per month. Hit the join button. Okay, so the Jinn. The Jinn, or sometimes called God's other people, the name actually meaning hidden or concealed, are from the Islamic mythology or ideologies, theologies. So you'll find mention of the Jinn in the Quran and other Islamic texts. Now, these are the hidden people. They are found in dimensions which are outside the physical world, and they were around before humankind. And it can also be said that Jinn are similar, if not the same, actually, as otherworldly beings, such as the Fae from European tradition, or even possibly the inorganic beings and allies that Castaneda spoke about, or Don Juan told Carlos Castaneda about. Now, in Islamic faith, this world that they live in, this otherworldly place, is usually called Kaf, or also known as Mount Kaf or Kafku. And this is the land that they're said to reside in, and it's a legendary mountain made of shining emeralds. So this is the land that they come from, this is the land they reside in, although you do find them in this physical realm. So they kind of pop in and out. There are portals between the worlds, and when the dimensional worlds sort of come closer together, they are able to come in and out. Although we can look further back into Persian law, ancient Persian law. There was mention of an otherworldly spirit called the Jaini. This is spelled Jainni, and also Jaini. One was singular, one was double. This refers to the masculine and feminine of the species. And these were also, this was discovered in an inscription dating back 3,000 years. And these were Jinn-like beings called Ginei or Jinne, which meant rewarding gods and gods of pleasure and pain. And these were considered to be gods which could bring you pleasure and bring you things, but they would kind of switch and turn on you in an instant. So what is interesting about the Jinn is it mentions in the Quran that Allah created the Jinn before humans. Nobody knows for sure how long ago this was. It's usually mentioned 1,000 or 2,000 years before humans were created. But this could extend into millions of years. It is mentioned by Helena Blavatsky. It was either Blavatsky or Dion Fortune, I'm sure it was Blavatsky in The Secret Doctrine, that this was a race, the fourth race, and now the humans are the fifth race to inhabit the earth. And the Jinn had civilizations, they had cultures, they had societies, they had families, children, just like we do, exactly like we do. But they kind of burnt it all down with wars and such, which kind of rings a bell. That's where we're headed, really. So really they kind of ruined their chances of being the people of Earth, and then God created humans in their place. It says in the Quran, chapter 15, verses 26 and 27, "Indeed, we created man from sounding clay, molded from black mud. As for the Jinn, we created them earlier from smokeless fire." So the Jinn were created first, and then humans. The Jinn were created from smokeless fire. There is some debate about what the smokeless fire was. It could be, considering the area that this comes from, the Middle East, ancient Middle East. We may consider that smokeless fire is the heat of the desert. Of course, we don't know what the landscape was like then. Obviously, humans weren't around. There was no human history to begin with. So it could be completely different. Smokeless fire is also sometimes considered to be plasma. So yeah, I mean, basically the Jinn were created before humans and from smokeless fire, whereas the humans were created from clay or from the earth. The one character which is mentioned a lot in the Quran regarding the Jinn is Iblis. Iblis is considered to be the leader of the Jinn. He is not the father of the Jinn. Iblis came about when the Jinn were already around. So Iblis is a Jinn and considered, as I said, to be a leader, not the leader, but a leader. They're all different factions, all different clans within the race of Jinn, and Iblis is just one of them. However, Iblis kind of ascended to a position where he was considered to be like an angel. Angels are considered to have been created from spiritual light. So that's a different race altogether from the Jinn and from humans. But Iblis was said to have ascended to that level. However, there are different legends regarding this. In some, Iblis is equated with Azazel, so that would make this entity, this being, an angelic being. And as we know from the story of the Watchers and the Grigori, Azazel was one of the fallen angels, one of the angels that were sent down to earth in order to watch humans, and then they decided to have a rebellion and mate with humans and create the race of Nephilim and such things. But in the story in Quran, Iblis is said to have gone against God's word, or Allah's word. After Allah created Adam, or humans, he instructed all of the angels to bow down to humans, and Iblis rebelled. He said, "No, I'm not going to bow down to something that's made of clay." And therefore he was sort of banished from heaven and sent to earth. And he made a deal with Allah that himself and the Jinn could stay around until the Day of Judgment. And he said that he would try and tempt humans into not following Allah. So the stories here are very similar to the Christian stories of Lucifer or Satan, or whatever title we want to give that entity, which kind of stood up to his father and said, "No, I'm not bowing down to the humans," and he was cast out of heaven. And Satan then went on to tempt humans into sinning and things like that. So the stories are very similar. But we can also equate this, as I said, because one of the legends states that Iblis was Azazel. We can also equate this with the story of the Watchers. So there's a lot of parallels that we can draw from just the story of Iblis itself. I just want to read the Quran. It is chapter 15, continuing from the previous one, verses 28 to 37. "And mention, O Muhammad, when your Lord said to the angels, I will create a human being out of clay from an altered black mud. And when I have proportioned him and breathed into him of my created soul, then fall down to him in prostration. So the angels prostrated, all of them entirely, except Iblis. He refused to be with those who prostrated. Allah said, O Iblis, what is the matter with you, that you are not with those who prostrate? He said, never would I prostrate to a human whom you created out of clay from an altered black mud. Allah said, then get out of it, for indeed you are expelled, and indeed upon you is the curse until the day of recompense. He said, my Lord, then reprieve me until the day they are resurrected. Allah said, so indeed you are of those reprieved. Okay, so that's basically that story of Iblis being rejected, thrown out of paradise, and sent down to earth. Now we've also got, we can talk about the orders of the Jinn. Now, one of the books that I found very interesting was The Vengeful Demon. This was written by, let me just check here, Philip J. Imbrogno and Rosemary Ellen Gully. Very good book, very interesting book. Of all the things I've read about the Jinn, the order, specifically concerning the orders and the clans of the Jinn, I do find this one to be probably the best interpretation, probably the easiest to understand, really. So I'm just going to read from that. This is found in one of the appendixes of the book. And this actually splits them into different clans referring to different colors, which kind of, I don't know, makes a bit more sense to me, I suppose. So we have the Black Jinn, the most powerful of all Jinn. Little is known about them. The only reference we have is from ancient Persia, where they were called Shamir. Then we have the Blue Jinn, the elders and clan leaders of the Jinn order. They have little interaction with humans, but have been known to participate in important moments of history. They are known as Marid, Nekrataal, and Afrit. Just bear in mind there's a difference between Afrit and Ifrit in this regard. So these are the Afrit, the Blue Jinn. Yellow Jinn, middle-aged Jinn with considerable power. Most are family leaders. They have little, if no, interest in the human race and the physical world. They are known as Juzam, and the nastier ones are called Efriti. Green Jinn, youngest and least powerful of the Jinn. They are curious and like to interact with the human race in the physical world. Many young ones like to play pranks on humans. They are known as Ernan, Kukus, Amar, Awar, Jan, and Amir. Interestingly enough, Jan, Jann, is also one of the titles or words we use for the plural of Jinn. Jinn being a plural as well, Jinni being singular. And if you have a look at some of the stuff that Nineveh Shadrach mentions, he talks on his YouTube channel. He talks about the father of the Jinn, and don't really know for sure, but it is most likely that Jan is actually the father of the Jinn, the first. Red Jinn, very old and powerful Jinn. Most were only Blue Jinn. They worship Iblis, and their goal is to destroy all humans. They are served by other Jinn, and in rare cases humans. Some serve willingly, some by force. They are known as ghouls, shaitan or shaitan, and ifrit. Alright, so that's the order of the Jinn. Now, another thing to mention here is a Solomonic problem. So I'm not sure why my exposure suddenly went crazy there. Well, been building up, just corrected it. Okay, so back to the Solomonic stuff. So we have these particular class, a particular clan of Jinn, which are out to harm humans. They want to destroy humans. They're not happy with humans. They don't like them. This probably stems from a few things, one of them being Iblis, who would not prostrate to humans, just refused, and therefore that theme sort of continued. Another theme or possibility here is the way King Solomon actually treated them. King Solomon really tortured, imprisoned, forced the Jinn to do his bidding. And after years and years and years, I'm pretty damn sure they weren't very happy with him, and therefore humans themselves. They were really mistreated, according to the legends, of course. I mean, these are legends where we can't say that it's absolute truth and absolute fact, but according to the legends, you can sort of understand exactly why the Jinn do not like humans. So we have the Lemegeton, or the Goetia, Ars Goetia, from the Lesser Keys of Solomon. And this is the one we often follow the most, with the 72 spirits of the Goetia. Now, there is a bit of a problem or difficulty with this, because the names in the Goetia that we find, the Mathers version, the Crowley version, the modern versions of the Ars Goetia that we are most commonly or more familiar with, the names in there are not the same as the original. Although we don't really know what the actual original was. However, there was a book titled Miscellaneo de Solomon. If you have a look at Nineveh Shadrach's books he wrote, he took this and translated it into English, called the Book of Dead Names. And when you read through that, the names are completely and utterly different to what we found in the Ars Goetia. The Ars Goetia itself is actually a compilation of a variety of different books. It started off with the Miscellaneo de Solomon, but there was also the Book of the Offices of Spirits, or the Liber Officiorum Spiritum. But the Miscellaneo de Solomon actually goes through the spirits. Solomon basically had a Jinn which helped him, aided him, and kind of called the Jinn forward, and then Solomon would question them about who they are, what their name is, what they are known to have done. And there was a whole part of this which relates to herbal law. And the whole part in the Ars Goetia which is relating to rituals, tools used and such things, wasn't actually in this book. So the Ars Goetia is a compilation of all these variety of different books. So there's a Miscellaneo de Solomon, there's the Book of the Offices of Spirits, there's also Johann Weyer's Pseudo Monarchia Daemonum. God, I wish they used simple bloody terms and names for these books. From that and the Book of the Offices of Spirits, probably a variety of others actually, Ars Goetia was then created and compiled. So what we have in the Ars Goetia is completely different to what it would have originally been if we were to consider the workings and the spirits that Solomon actually worked with. So although we do consider the Ars Goetia, the spirits in there, to be Jinn, different to, I would say they were very different to what the original was. However, now when we have a look at the legends of King Solomon, so he had this spirit, and this is only one of the legends. If you actually look in the Book of Dead Names by Nineveh Shadrach, the names are different in there. And this is another legend which came across which uses different names again. However, the same story is kind of being told. So in this legend, it started off with Ornias, who was told to cut stones for the temple using iron tools. Now, the problem with iron tools is the Jinn are allergic to iron, just like the Fae. And using iron tools to try and cut these stones and such would obviously harm the Jinn. So Ornias actually made a deal with Solomon that he would bring forth the Jinn, and then Solomon can sort of force them into labor. So he called, using King Solomon's ring, he threw the ring at Beelzebub, and Beelzebub came forth and was then forced to cut blocks of Theban marble. Because Beelzebub was considered, or is considered, to be a mighty prince, this was extremely humiliating. All of the Jinn that were around kind of wailed in horror and disgust with this. So this is the start of the hatred, really, if you ask me. Okay, so then Beelzebub, and then the next one was a female Jinn named Anoscalis, who was sentenced to spinning hemp ropes. And then we go into Asmodeus, and Asmodeus kind of decided to threaten Solomon by making a prediction that the Jinn would be free one day and would rule over humans as gods. So Solomon decided that this, in order to subdue Asmodeus, he would weaken him with iron and force him to carry 10 jugs of water and make him trample over clay, or over mud, in order to make clay with his feet. So I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. The Jinn were forced to carry stones from the quarry to the temple site, and Iblis came one night and asked the Jinn if how they were doing, and they moaned and said, we have to carry these stones the whole day from the quarry. And Iblis said, do you have a reprieve? And they said, yes, we don't have to carry anything back. So Solomon decided to make them carry stuff from the quarry to the temple and then back to the quarry as punishment. And then Iblis came along again, and they complained about this. And he said, do you have a reprieve? Are you able to sleep at night? And they said, yes. And so Solomon decided to make them work day and night. It just goes on and on and on. I mean, if the legend has any truth in it, then I'm pretty sure I would hate humans as well, if I were the Jinn and being subjected to all of this. So I think you can see where that possibly came from. As I said, I mean, this is all possibles. We can't say it is factual. It is based on legend, myth, and such things. But I think what you'll find is, I personally find that when we are working with the Ars Goetia and we are working with the spirits in that book, I do consider them to be Jinn, and they are happy to work with humans. Now, some will say that they are only doing this because they just want to lead us astray. I personally don't think so. If that's the way you see it, then that's fine, but personally I don't think so. I find them to be beings which actually do want to work with humans. Now, this isn't to say that they have had a hard time. They have. When we talk about, often ceremonial magicians do go into the Goetia, the Solomonic format quite extensively, and do stick to it. They do threaten, they bind, they treat them like shit. And that's going to annoy them as well. It would. anybody. But I think in the last few decades, it's been building up more and more, where people have had more respect for these spirits. You know, I think we kind of view, when we think of Jinn, Jinn is a term which is used in Islamic faith. It is to denote an otherworldly being, an otherworldly species, and that is from an Arabic and Islamic perspective. Now, if we go over to Europe, we have the Fae, which are exactly the same. They are a species, a race, which are otherworldly. So it's quite possible that it's the same thing. The Jinn and the Fae are the same thing. It's just that it's different terms, different words used from different cultures. So, you know, if we go into fairy lore, there's a whole load of stuff about fairy lore. And even there we have the ones that want to hurt, mislead, lie to, destroy, harm humans. But we have Fae, which a lot of humans actually work with successfully. So, you know, it's very similar, if not the same thing. It's just that, you know, from the context of the Islamic religion, the Jinn are evil. They're out to get us. They're out to harm us. They're out to hurt us. They want to destroy humans because humans are this, that, and the other. But I don't believe that all of the Jinn are like that. They don't all want to harm us. They don't all want to destroy us. There are different clans. There are different orders of Jinn. And I personally think that the Jinn from the Goetia are one of those clans, one of those classes, orders, whatever we want to classify them as, that want to actually work with humans. They want to work alongside us. So it's my personal experience anyway. You know, we have to all make up our own minds at the end of the day. So a couple of books you might want to look into. There is the Vengeful Jinn, Unveiling the Hidden Agenda of Genies by Philip J. Imbrogno and Rosemary Ellen Gully. Another book which you might want to look into, and I say this because it has some very interesting things about the history of the Jinn and also working magic itself, some interesting concepts in there. However, I wouldn't go ahead and work with the Jinn that is mentioned in this book, but it's the Book of Smokeless Fire by S. Ben Cayenne. And the reason I say I wouldn't is because, you know, even Cayenne himself mentions they are hate, pain, and disease waiting to be released upon the world with a rage that is unmatched. So the Jinn mentioned in that book are, they want to destroy the world, they want to destroy humans. But, you know, it's just, I don't know why you would want to work with them. It's kind of like giving a 3-year-old a gun and saying don't use it. But at the same time, as I said, there is some interesting and good stuff in there about the history of the Jinn itself, so there is that to the book. There's also 1001 Nights, translated by Richard Francis Burton, or sometimes called the Arabian Nights in more modern terms, and there's also the Quran. There are entire chapters dedicated to the Jinn. So, you know, there's a lot of sources out there about the Jinn, and I do however think they are a bit biased, personally. And again, I'm not saying that all Jinn are happy and sparkly and, you know, full of rainbows. There are some Jinn that were probably out there to mislead us, and they want to harm us and destroy us. They are a race, and if you look at the human race, we have our psychopaths. That's not going to make a difference whether it's human or Jinn. You've got your arseholes, you've got your psychopaths, you've got your murderers, your rapists, those who actually want to harm, hurt, and destroy. But you have your good humans, just like you have your good Jinn and your good Fae. So I don't think we should completely reject the idea of working with Jinn just because, you know, one body of people say that all Jinn are bad and out to kill us. I don't think that's the case. But again, my personal opinion. Alright, so that's the intro to Jinn, really. I'll probably come up with some more material in the future, so stick around for that, and I'll see you soon. Have a good one. Cheers for now.